We're not getting an intro today or nothing, boys. I mean, they were just going straight for it,
Oh,
huh?
we're live.
It is a little early in the week, man. It is a little early in the week, so forgive us. We already did a show today. This is our second show for the week. It is the WTBS NCAA Top 10 with our guru down there, Justin Martinez, and we have with us in the flesh, Mr. Roland. What's up, man? This isn't your first college show, is it?
No, I think I joined you guys a couple weeks ago on a show, and I've been in the comments the past couple weeks giving my opinions on these games as you guys go through them. Like what you guys are doing with the podcast, want to be a part of it, and it's especially important right now with the college football rankings coming out each week. So, looking forward to discussing this with you guys.
Yeah, man. Hell yeah. Well, I don't want to wait because we had a lot of action. We had an upset. We have ranked matchups. It was crazy week 10 in college football. Justin, you want to start us off, man?
Yeah, so let's get into it. We talked about two matchups last week that were very important, and they both belong to the SEC. I said SEC would own Saturday because of those two ranked matchups. But let's get to the first one here. And the first one is Tennessee and Georgia. Here's the headline: Top dogs bite down on the Vols, 27-13. Here you got Stetson Bennett with the coldest celebration I've seen in the college football this year. He's got the telephone out. The rumor mill is that the Tennessee fans were blowing up his phone all night the night before. So when he hit that touchdown, he let them know, hey, I got your calls, I got your messages, and I'm delivering. I like it. It's cold. I like it.
I like it.
I think here, what Georgia did winning this game was bought themselves a mulligan. They won, and now they can afford to lose once, maybe, probably the SEC championship, and still crack that top four.
For sure. I agree wholeheartedly with you. They solidified themselves. To me, I get where you're coming from with that statement, but they solidified themselves as like you said, the top dog in the country. I don't think there's any question who it is. It's Georgia. You heard all week Tennessee's offense, Hendon Hooker. He's almost a favorite for the Heisman. Like I said, high-flying offense, new coach. Everything's coming together for Tennessee. Biggest game in their school history up until this point, probably since they won a national championship in the late 90s or whatever with Peyton Manning. They were the trendy 8-point dog, and look what happened. Great team. I mean, good teams win, great teams cover. That's all I got to say about Georgia. Great team, great victory. And I'm a little worried. I don't know if I'm super worried about Tennessee, but I have a feeling we'll talk a little bit more about them later. So,
yeah, man, I was huge on this Tennessee. I put the house on this. I made a house call. I went to social
spread,
media.
Right?
Yeah, the spread, and I think I got them to +10. I called them frauds afterward on social media. I used the F word on Tennessee, frauds, because they're frauds. I was on them big. They beat Bama. They, my favorite team. And I said, you know what? I'll ride with them then. And Stetson Bennett and Georgia shut me up 27-13. The top dogs, like we said, bit down on the Vols. And, man, that's all I really got to say about that. Georgia stays number one, proved everybody wrong. And Tennessee didn't fall too far. Obviously, they're still high in the rankings, but it's going to be an interesting, next couple weeks. And the playoff, bracket is going to get crazy, man.
And speaking of the playoff, Justin, I want to ask you, because I know you're an Ohio State guy, CJ Stroud, whole year, pretty much been the leader in the Heisman race since Bryce Young dropped off early in the year.
Yeah.
Could you see a path for Stetson Bennett to get there? He's had some games, he's had some Heisman moments, and I've heard his odds have shrunk recently.
So if you've been watching the show, we actually talked about this week 2, that Stetson Bennett could be a dark horse. The first 3 games they had at Georgia, he looked like he was the man. Then they kind of go and slow their roll at Kent State, slow the roll at Missouri, but they're kind of back. If Stetson Bennett finishes the rest of the season, plays like this, 3 touchdowns, you got to think he's playing for the best team. The Heisman usually goes to the guy playing on the best team and playing quarterback lately for the best team. Yeah, you got to think that there's a chance for him at the Heisman. Hendon Hooker was leading last week, had a dud this game. Then you had C.J. Stroud. go off to Northwestern, play in that 50-mile-per-hour wind. Couldn't really get the ball going either. So you're starting to see these odds start to shrink. And if these guys end up winning it out, you have to think Stetson's going to be there on Saturday night talking for a Heisman there. The other thing I want to talk about, though, Roland, is Georgia. Georgia now probably, in my opinion, owns the 2 best wins in college football this season. That win over Oregon is starting to look really good. It's starting to age really well. And now you got a win over what was number 1 Tennessee. I don't think there's a program in the country that has that kind of strength of schedule right now, currently.
The only one that you could look to is a team that we'll talk about later is TCU. TCU's got some pretty impressive wins over ranked opponents, if that's what we're looking at. But to your point, I mean, Georgia just beat the brakes off of Tennessee, and they beat the brakes off of Oregon, who, like you said, that victory is aging well. Bo Nix has himself in Heisman talks. That Oregon team has themselves, and, you know, hey, if they win the Pac-12, could they sneak their way in with some chaos? Like, well, again, I'm not trying to take too much away from later slides, but if crazy stuff happens, you know, Oregon could find themselves in. And, you know, Georgia blowing through people helps Oregon's case too, I think.
No. Well, Ron, let's get to the next game, right?
Yeah, we can, man. Just the closing note on Georgia. I mentioned that they didn't have a lot of stars. You know, Tennessee has some breakout stars. Bama has some big names. And besides Stetson Bennett, you don't know too many guys on that Georgia squad. Their star linebacker was out for the game as well. We thought that was going to hurt them. But they're getting it done, not under the radar, because obviously they're 1 or 2 every single year, at least for the past 2-3 years. But you know, not a lot of highlight plays, nothing crazy, but they're getting it done with, I don't want to say mediocre guys, but, you know, guys who aren't making the headline. So more props to them for that. They do have a big matchup against Mississippi State. They're 6-3 and 3-3 in the SEC. It's an away game. The spread is huge. It's 16, but any given Saturday, you never know, man, when it's, you know, when it's an SEC matchup. But crazy upset. The Dogs stay number 1, and let's go to the second game of the weekend. That was pretty nuts.
I want to go to the second game, but you brought up such a good point. I have to highlight something. You said they don't have the players. Ron, they don't have the running backs that they always have. They don't have James Cook. They don't have Chubb. They don't have the running backs that Georgia has, the RBU, and they're getting it done in a different way. Pretty exciting to see. Let's get to the next game. And the next game was LSU and the Crimson Tide. And here we got the Tigers upset the Tide. Wait, what is this, Clemson? Look at this play here. This is a national championship game for the pick play for the end zone. LSU tees up the same exact play, and they beat Bama Saturday night 32-31, doing the same exact thing. How has Nick Saban not learned that, you know what, when you're getting trips right, they're probably going to pick if the running backs are willing out? What's the correction here? I mean, what's he doing? How come we're not seeing that? Is it the defensive coordinator's fault? Roland, what do you think?
I just think it's good situational football. I mean, to your point, how are you not ready for that if you're Nick Saban? But I got to think, you know, if you're a defensive coordinator at this point, you know when you're down on the goal line, you got to look out for, you know, bunch formations that get you crossed up, and, you know, you got to watch out for those pick plays. It could just be that this is Nick Saban's Achilles heel. I don't know, honestly.
It seemed like when they played A&M somewhat sort of kind of designed a pick play too. It didn't go well for them. They ended up, you know, getting picked off at the end zone, but it seems like that Alabama's being exposed in that way. You kind of hate to see it, don't you, Ron?
Yeah, well, I mean, coaches coach and players play. It depends what side of the field they're going to run this play to. If they're going to run it to, you know, the first team guys who are there all the time, the standouts, maybe they'll read the play and pick it up. But if you're running it to the opposite side where you have, you know, you're a weaker safety instead of your stronger safety, maybe a younger cornerback with not much experience, you're going to choose what side to run it on, you know, more than likely. I think it's more of a chess match than what people think it is. You know, it looks easy. Hey, stop the pick play. You know the pick play's coming, but what side are they going to run into? Do they have an option if that pick play isn't there to, you know, run another option from the slot, a receiver? If you have a mobile quarterback, you know, they can run it in if the DB and the safety stays with the receivers. It's just a tricky play to handle overall. But I mean, but they got it done, and they shout out to Josh. You know, another Roll Tide fan. We're not in the college playoffs. On the flip side of this, besides the play, it's just a huge shot for Bama. I think they dropped to number 7 or something crazy. We could see it for the first year, Alabama not being in contention for the college football playoff with a quarterback who's coming off a Heisman win. Insane stuff happening this year in college football, man.
Well, we have to talk about those 2 games because they're going to shape this week's top 10.
Sure.
And let's get into the top 10 for WTBS this week. All right, this week we have number 10, Clemson, with the loss to Notre Dame. I'm so happy about this loss, Roland, because now we don't have to pretend like Clemson could have beat anybody in those top 4 spots in the playoffs anyway.
Yeah, we knew, and we've been talking about it all year, that they were hampered at the quarterback position. Probably it's even more important in the college ranks to have a good quarterback. And they were hampered there, and it finally bit them in the behind.
Yeah. Now, number 9, Bama. Number 8, USC. Number 7, LSU. Number 6, Oregon. We did talk about last week LSU getting that 10 spot. We thought that was a little disrespectful to the top 25. You know, we thought they were serving them up for Bama. But guess what? We ate our crow here, and LSU shows up and shows out Saturday night. Now, let's talk about the top 5 here. We got number 5, TCU. I had to put TCU behind Tennessee this week. I know they're undefeated. I know they got the top 25 wins that Roland mentioned, but I just feel like what Tennessee's done with their strength of schedule as well. I would, in the end, I would still probably put a 1-loss SEC team over TCU so far.
That's some SEC bias talking right there.
I was gonna say, man.
So the reason why I say that is, when I think about the top 25 wins that TCU has, it's multiple. It's probably the most out of everybody in the top 10. The only thing that I don't like is, like, I don't care if you beat number 26, because number 26 is not beating number 2, 3, or 4, you know? So those wins don't mean as much to me. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's the SEC bias, like Roland mentioned. I am heading to that conference soon, so I have a little bit of it already, you know? So we'll see.
That's fair, but you know, I got to give TCU credit because you have to play the games. If they're in conference, which a lot of these games were, when you talk about they beat Oklahoma, they routed Oklahoma 55-24. Now, but we all know Oklahoma is not the Oklahoma of old, so you got to kind of put that away. They beat Kansas. I think that was a battle of top 10s or top 15s when it happened. You got to take that into consideration. And then Kansas, had the injury to their quarterback, missed a few games. They look like they've rebounded. They beat TCU at home. I'm impressed with TCU. I would probably flip them with Tennessee because I think Tennessee I want to refrain from using the E word. I want to refrain from using the word exposed. But I feel like that game let us know that Tennessee is not yet at that level of the Georgias and the Bamas, although we've seen Bamas not there. I'm just talking historically. They're not there yet. So that's why I would have TCU at 4. But I see where you're coming from. And quite frankly, I'm surprised in the committee.
You should have seen Justin last week complaining about Alabama having 1 loss over an undefeated TCU team, and now he puts Tennessee over TCU.
Just like the committee, just making up the rules as they go.
Just making up the rules as you go, Justin. So I mean, what is it?
My list, baby.
So you're finally putting some TCU respect on their name, but you have them under Tennessee.
I think it's a little bit of foreshadowing for me as well, because I kind of feel like they might drop out after this week. So that's kind of why I have them. Let's move up to 3, Michigan, 2, Ohio State. At the end of the year, one of these dudes is getting kicked off, and I don't know if they're making the college football playoff. One of them will, but not both of them. And number 1, Georgia. After the game they had against Tennessee, it could have been a lot worse. We had some crazy rain towards the end of that game, so the route wasn't on, but it was still 14 points, so they covered. Now, the one that matters, the list that actually matters, the college football playoff rankings. Let's move on to that. And here we are. This is how the college football playoff rankings sees it. They see it 10 Clemson, 9 Alabama, 8 USC, 7 LSU, 6 Oregon, 5 Tennessee, 4 TCU, 3 Michigan, 2 Ohio State, and 1 Georgia. Very similar to our list. The only difference is they are giving respect to TCU this week and putting them at 4 and having Tennessee right outside looking in at number 5. Roland, you're agreeing with this list? You like this list? Because I know you mentioned you wanted to flip mine this way.
Yeah,
So
I think this top 4 is probably how I would have put it. Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, or TCU. I could even make the argument to put Michigan above Ohio State, just because if you're going off of the eye test and the victories, and Michigan I think they had a close game against Rutgers recently, so I'm probably talking out of both sides of my mouth, or both sides. I don't know the phrase, but you know what I'm talking about. I don't know. Ohio State, Michigan, very, very close to me. Again, Georgia just a step above everybody else. I do want to point out, though, Bama, they're only at number 9.
Mm-hmm.
And Justin has the SEC. If Justin has SEC bias, ESPN might as well stand for the SEC. They're synonymous with one another. ESPN is going to push Alabama like crazy. You're going to hear, could 3 SEC teams possibly make it into the playoff? It's coming. They kept Alabama around just for probably conversation purposes, because if everybody up front takes care of their business, there should be no reason Bama would flip all the way up to number 4. I can't see that happening. I think USC is impressive so far, despite their one loss. They should find their way into the conversation, in Oregon as well. So, yeah, just wanted to point out Bama did not fall that far.
Yeah, and the other question I have, do you happen to know the schedule for Oregon and USC? Do they meet in the regular season, or is that going to be for the Pac-12 title?
Let me see.
Because if both of them run the table, you got to think that there's a conversation, and they don't play each other till the Pac-12 title. USC still has Colorado, UCLA, the Battle of LA, and Notre Dame left on schedule. If USC or Oregon wins out, there's got to be a conversation where you're not going to have maybe the 2 SEC teams after all, if also TCU wins out, or a situation like that, right, Roland?
Yeah, no, there's no way. If those teams take care of business and they end up running the table,
Alabama's out at that point, specifically, too.
For sure. Yeah, Oregon looks impressive, and they got some big games too with Utah and Washington.
I already think Alabama's done. I mean, yeah. I don't even think if they run the table that they're anywhere close to the top 4. I mean, those top 4 teams are just tough, and then you still have Tennessee at 5. Oregon's there with only 1 loss. Also, I think that it's just time. They're not going to make it. I think that's what you guys just said will be the conversation piece, but the other way around, to where they're going to say, does Bama always get too much love? Are they always getting pushed because of Nick Saban? And then all these schools that have always, I mean, I can't think of the school right now, but there was a school who went undefeated as well, and they just wanted to be in the top 10. So there's a lot of smaller schools that are stepping up, and that argument's always there at the end of the year that these smaller schools with undefeated records are not getting enough love. And that's going to be the main point of it all, is that Alabama's not going to get that push anymore. I think there's going to be a lot of pushback with 2 losses. And Dude, don't look past this Ole Miss game that's coming up that we're going to talk about later. It's going to be a tough game for them. It's going to be at Ole Miss. It's going to be another rival. I mean, the season is already crazy as it is. Can we see Bama go to 7-3 and we don't even talk about them for the rest of the year as far as contention goes?
They won't even get a New Year's Day bowl at that point, maybe.
No, I mean, they'll get some kind of bowl, but it ain't going to be
not
around,
New Year's Day bowl.
Yeah, it ain't going to be around, the primetime spots.
Chaos definitely needs to happen, but I mean, it could. Yeah. I could see it. I mean, TCU loses to Texas this weekend, like Eddie's saying in the chat. Oregon loses to Oregon State or Utah. And these last 3 games of the season, USC stumbles, LSU. I could see it. It's just, man. They're there. I don't know.
Well, let's talk about TCU, Roland. 0 margin error for TCU here. I personally believe if they want a shot at this college football playoff, they got to do it without a blemish on the record. They have to put up a donut, no losses for the year if they want a shot. Because there might even be a conversation that an undefeated TCU might not even get a 4 spot when you have other teams with 1 loss, like if let's say LSU runs the table or something. So they got to do it. 0 margin for error, Roland. Am I wrong here?
No, I have a feeling that the the committee begrudgingly put TCU at number 4 because of all the things that Ron was noting about the bias and the stuff. How would have looked if Tennessee, right after getting the brakes beaten off of them, they fell to 4 and TCU undefeated stays at 5? That would have looked bad. So I think the committee will look for any reason to take TCU out just because they don't have them rated higher than all these other teams. You hear TCU neutral field against Ohio State or against Georgia, they're more than two touchdown dogs. So you know they don't get respect from the power rating people who look at the teams that way. And the Big 12 never gets respect. Although if you really want to keep it 100,
yes, please.
The Big 12 is good. The Big 12 is not a bad conference. The Big 12 is solid pretty much from top to bottom. I mean, Texas Tech is not an easy out, and
K-State's doing well.
K-State does work. Kansas is good this year.
Oklahoma State with their one loss.
Oklahoma State is good this year. OU is down, but OU's, I mean, it's Oklahoma. They're not a cupcake by any means. I mean, this is a good conference, but they don't get the love. So I agree.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if TCU needs to win out to me or wants contention for the top 4 spot, all they have to do is beat Texas. After Texas, they play against Baylor at Baylor, and then they end the year at home against Iowa State.
And the Big 12 title after that.
And the Big 12 title after that. I am looking at their wins, though. I mean, I could see the argument here. They have four wins over top 25 opponents, but only one of them was in the top 10, which was Oklahoma State. And they beat
That's a good win.
They only beat them by 3. They only beat Kansas State by 10. They beat Kansas by 7. They killed Oklahoma, but even schools like SMU, they only beat them by 8. They just came off a win versus Texas Tech. They only won by 10. I mean, yes, they are a smaller school, but if you really want to prove yourself that you belong with the big boys, you got to put a lot of these smaller schools away. Of course, a win over Texas would be huge, but even the last 2 games, Baylor and Iowa State, I think they need decisive victories to stay in that top 4 for sure. If not, potentially, moving up to top 3 in case Michigan loses or something like that. But they need to win, and they need to win big. So they don't have – it's just like in, UFC. They don't want it to go to the judges' scorecards. They want to knock out the competition.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Let's say they run the table. They beat Baylor. They beat Texas. They beat Iowa State, but somehow lose by a close margin in the Big 12 title game.
Well,
it's too short a string. That's it. They're pulling it.
They're going to be in the Alpha Bowl at that point.
Who do you guys think they play? Who do you guys think they play in the conference championship?
Well, Texas is out of their mulligan, so they got to win out to even be in that game. It's hard to say right now. That's something we'll definitely be looking at next week to see the Big 12 race as it shapes up after this week.
God, and they just got to beat Texas because I can't stand the Texas's back crowd. I've been hearing that since
like
2011.
Like this guy right here.
You don't hear it from me.
Like this guy right here on the screen.
He already has it coming out of his mouth. Like he's just waiting.
This is him. I believe this was Ben earlier. I think he may be on lunch, and he's talking from the Facebook. We'll be talking about sports.
Yeah. So TCU, please.
All right. So moving on from y'all's favorite conference, Justin
LSU.
has a little monito of your picture.
Yeah. So we got Professor Chaos from South Park. Captain Chaos over here. LSU this year, because they just got the win over Alabama, they're gonna be probably representing the SEC West in the SEC championship game. They're the key to chaos for the college football playoff. How can you deny LSU if they win the SEC, that 4th spot in the college football playoff? And things start to get real shaky after that because now Georgia has a loss. Tennessee's probably sitting out as well. You're probably going to get only represented by one Big Ten team at that point because Ohio State and Michigan are going to play each other. It gets kind of gray around there, Roland. What do you think? Are they the key to chaos, or maybe TCU more of a key?
I think both of these schools are the key to chaos because TCU on one hand, I think they control their destiny. If TCU wins out, I think it's going to take a lot for them to, be left out of the party. But as soon as TCU loses, that opens the door for, the chaos to ensue. LSU, same thing. I think if LSU runs the table, they end up beating Georgia in the SEC title game. There's no way you can leave these guys out of the college football playoff. No way.
So what kind of conversation do you have? LSU runs the table. They beat Georgia in the championship game because Georgia should represent the SEC East. Now you have a 1-loss Georgia and a 1-loss Tennessee and a 2-loss LSU. You have to pick one of those teams to represent. And who's the other team that you're going to pick in that? The 2 teams out of the 3 you're picking for the 4.
You leave Tennessee's the odd man out because they lost a head-to-head against Georgia. So,
but LSU has a loss against Tennessee and a big one.
Yeah.
It's hard.
That's a good one. But I guess that point, you just got to give LSU the respect for winning the SEC title game. And it's not going to get talked about. Probably won't happen. But what if Michigan and Ohio State play each other 38-35?
Yeah.
Why can't
scenarios, man? That's all it is.
Big Tens get in.
We're just throwing out scenarios. That's all it is. Just narratives.
Yeah. Conversational pieces.
Yeah. It'll get interesting, but I believe they're the key to chaos. Ron, what's up?
I think even if LSU somehow wins that SEC championship game, every vote, like this election's going on, every vote counts, just like every game counts. And they're going to look back to that week 1 loss against Florida State, 24-23, and they're going to say, man, if we would have just won that game. I don't think that you can have them in there with 2 losses. I mean, there's only 4 spots, guys. I mean, Georgia's going to get a spot. Ohio State is going to get a spot. That's 2. So, I mean, what are we really talking about here? We're not talking about 4 spots. To me, we're only talking about 2 spots left. And you still have Michigan and TCU undefeated, and then Tennessee's there. I mean, there's a lot of teams for those last 2 spots, and I don't think you can put a 2-loss team in there. And yes, they beat Bama, but was it the best Bama team this year? Can we say that they didn't beat the Bamas of 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Young was a little banged up. It wasn't the best Bama team, and they only won by 1 point. I mean, yes, albeit that it was a win over Bama, ranked at number 6. They came off a 25-point win over LSU before, but they took the big L, 40-13 against Tennessee. And if those are 2 teams that you're thinking of, giving 1 spot to, and you go head to head, all you have to say is, damn, Tennessee rolled these guys 40-13.
If I were to play devil's advocate, I would just say, hey, LSU, new coach, new transfer quarterback. At the time that they lost those games so early in the season, they're just getting going right now, becoming the best version of themselves. And, beating Bama. They were 14-point underdogs. So I'm not going to take that away from them. LSU, I'm rooting for them to get there. Not an LSU fan, but I'd like to see them make the title game.
I would like to see them do it too. I would like to see them win in the SEC title game too, because I like chaos.
Yeah, just for chaos, exactly.
Yeah, chaos purposes is good, but the only LSU team I will only ever showing love to is the Joe Burrow LSU team. Other than that, wow, man. All right. Keep us moving on, man. I know this show's really good. It's going really well. Last week was amazing. It was crazy. It was a lot of storylines coming up. It's just, last week was kind of, that coal, that hay just there, and this week might be the match, and it's gonna light the fire to what's coming up. So are we going to this week's games, or we got something else?
We just got one more narrative to cover, and it's a disappointment for both. So let's look at it here. It's who had the more disappointing season? Nick Saban, who said that this was no longer a rebuilding year. That was last year. This is the best roster he's ever had. He said he's had his favorite players, Bryce Young and Will Anderson. This is his best team that he's ever fielded on the field. He was very hyped about this year coming into it. Or Jimbo Fisher, who came in with the best recruiting class and now has half of that recruiting class not playing right now because they're suspended. And you're like five losses in a row or 5 losses in the conference? Who had the more disappointing season?
Ron, you want to go first on this one?
I'll keep it quick, man. Jimbo Fisher, to me, he got the bag. That's the biggest thing here is they paid him all this money, and he's won just as many games, or if not less games, than the coach that they fired him for. Regardless of it, you're a D1 team, you're a D1 program, and I think you got to have a lot more wins than what they have right now. As much as Saban wants to say that this was his best team, we could clearly see it on the field, as fans who watch college football. They weren't as talented. Their receivers this year were not on any kind of level as we've seen before. The Julio Joneses, the Waddles, Devontae Smiths. It's just they're just not there. That level isn't there. And defensively, they're not that shut down Bama squad either. I mean, they're giving up points left and right. So I think with the talent level not as great as it was, am I giving him a pass a little bit? Am I giving Saban a pass? I could say yes. But between these two coaches, the question is who's the more disappointing season? You kind of maybe expected this from Alabama, but to me, you didn't expect this at all coming out of Texas A&M. It's a huge disappointment. You have, Booster saying that, they spent too much money, and, you have alumni people, bad mouthing the hell out of Jimbo Fisher. So it's a worse position for me at Texas A&M right now. So the more disappointing season, Jimbo Fisher takes the cake for me, boys.
Yeah, I gotta agree. And first, I just want to touch on Saban and Bama before I get into Texas A&M. Saban and Alabama, they're losing respectable games against high-ranked competition, down to the wire. Is it disappointing for them? Sure, because Bama, they expect to win every game. They expect to win every year's national championship or at least be in the playoffs. So from that perspective, extremely disappointing. But without a doubt, it's Texas A&M, and I'm glad Eddie said it. A&M, I didn't go there, have no horse in this race, but it is a loser program. It's a program that thinks that they're better than they really are. They had one flash in a pan year with Johnny Manziel, and they thought that they were the class of the SEC. And look at where they're at now. They get recruiting classes. So what? Everybody in the SEC gets recruiting classes. This is what you do with them. Jimbo Fisher, biggest used car salesman in the country, got lucked up with Jameis Winston and Jalen Ramsey and all of those boys down in Tallahassee and rode their coattails to a national championship, not the other way around. He needed the players to get there. It's proof is in the pudding. He has a worse record through 5 years than Sumlin did, and they got rid of Sumlin because they were mad at him for going 8-4 or 8-5, right? So I mean, how are you going to make that comparison, Sumlin, and then go on to Jimbo Fisher, give him all this money, make a big deal about it, and again, like I said, if anybody that needs to look themselves in the mirror more than like Texas, which I think they've already kind of done to a degree, it's Texas A&M, because Texas A&M thinks that they're Alabama, they think that they're LSU, but they're not, and this is proving it. 5 games in a row. They've lost to people like Mississippi State and South Carolina. They lost to Spencer Rattler. I mean, I wouldn't have let Jimbo Fisher back on the bus after that game. They should have done the Lane Kiffin treatment to Jimbo Fisher right there. This is embarrassing. I'm not a fan of Jimbo Fisher, as you guys can tell. So obviously, Texas A&M, more disappointing season for me.
There you go. Justin, who you got?
Yeah, so for me, the more disappointing season belongs to Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide.
Why do you gotta be like that, bro?
Because nobody believed Jimbo Fisher was going to be successful with those recruits anyway. I mean, people did have him in the top 6, but that was like, why? You already know what you're getting out of Jimbo Fisher. He still rolls out the 2014 offense that he had at Florida State and expects to win. The guy can't coach him up. We knew that was coming. We knew it. But Nick Saban, he teed it up like this was going to be special this year. He teed it up like he had the dogs. And the only dog that he got out of that transfer portal was Jahmyr Gibbs. Therefore, Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide had the more disappointing season, in my opinion.
Do you think that, because, Ron touched on it, and I kind of agree with Ron, that this Alabama team probably is not as elite as it was in past years? Do you think they were just propped up by the 2 big names on both sides of the football, Will Anderson and Bryce Young? Everyone was just looking at that.
Of course they were looking at that, but you also have to look at the SEC media days where Saban was chomping at the bit to get on the field because of the teams that he said he had. So it was teed up by him. He made us believe, thinking, hey, this is the year they might just go crazy. With Bryce Young coming into his junior year, he's winning the Heisman the previous year. He's going to ball out, and it didn't show. I mean, you got 2 losses. You escaped Texas, and there's other games that could have been losses with Texas A&M won too. Yeah. So I got to go with Alabama on this one. I think they were the more disappointing season. And this is actually a good comparison because you have one with a winning season, and you have a team with a bad season, and you can't decide. You don't know who you really feel stronger about. They're both disappointing.
You think Jimbo Fisher's a future offensive analyst at Alabama after he gets fired from Texas A&M?
The question is, when does he get fired? Because that is a buyout, man. That's $95 million they're going to have to come up with just for his contract alone. Then you got to talk his coordinators that they're going to buy out as well. You're looking like at $150, $160 million transaction to get out of the Jimbo Fisher era, and that's expensive. And now Texas does got that oil money, but do they want to fork it up this year or wait another year to shed some of that money off?
That's a good point. Buyouts are
they're not going to buy him out. They're going to ride him out. They're going to just get more recruits and see what they can do. There's no way that they spend all this money on this guy. But
do they reassign him where they put him in some other field where he's doing something else?
Yeah, perhaps, maybe. I don't know. But I'm looking forward to this weekend, man. We have some great games coming up. Texas is, I don't want to say back, but everybody says they're back. I don't know if they are. But before we get into the games week 11, we do have a partnership. Great guy, great business. If you guys want to have partnerships with us, we can help you, get your message out there, whatever message it is that you want to send to, whatever business that you have, whatever clients that you have. Hey, come reach out. We have something coming up on the UFC show on Friday. We're working with somebody locally from Mission as well. And without further ado, like my boy Roland says, I got to get that one in. Here's one of our partners.
Get in top grade shape with Top Grade Physical Therapy. Let Dr. Rufino Gutierrez and his team give you the manual therapy you need. Soft tissue massages, joint manipulation and mobilization, trigger point dry needling, cupping, plus much more. Visit Top Grade Therapy today, 2801 West Expressway 83, Suite 210 in McAllen, or call 956-854-4364. It's not physical therapy if it's not top grade.
It's not physical therapy if it's not top grade. Make sure that if you do go, let them know that you did see it here on the show and that the boys from We Talking About Sports send you their way. But let's get into it, Justin. I'm going to start off with a little video that I made for you, for Ben, for Eddie, for all you Texas boys that are watching. I'm gonna hype you guys up a little bit. Texas number 18 versus TCU. Take it away, guys. I'll let you guys go in on this. I just wanted to hype it up, because this is one of the more, interesting games and one of the really only big games this week 11 for NCAA football.
Yeah, so let's look at the line here. We got number 18 Texas, 7-point favorites over number 4 TCU, who's 9-0. Roland, this is what I was talking about earlier when I had ranked them at 5. I had some little foreshadowing, because what I think is we're going to see TCU get outside the top 5 this week. I think they're going down. I think Texas wins. And I got to say, they have to do it early. They have to win big in the first half, because we've seen 2 weeks in a row now where Texas second half woes. I think they only scored 3 points in the second half against Kansas State. And we saw the meltdown in the second half against Oklahoma State that cost them their loss.
This is, to me, a game that has multiple storylines. Justin, You highlighted, 4 versus 18. Does TCU find themselves on the outside looking in after this game? Also, interesting tidbit, and the main thing actually that is scaring me, and the main reason why I have not bet and pounded TCU +7 yet, is because the architect of TCU wears burnt orange. Gary Patterson.
Yep.
The architect of the TCU football program as we know it today. He is now over at Texas. The guy who built TCU himself is a defensive analyst for the Texas Longhorns right now. That scares me a little bit. But look, this game to me, it's like what we talked about a couple weeks ago. I think I was coming on the show talking to you, Justin, I forgot, but Texas is the team that is power rated by people who make power rankings. Texas is in everyone's top 10. They're like number 5 or number 6 just in terms of power rating, how deep your squad is, how many people they project out to the NFL and whatnot. Texas is a top-ranked team, so that's the reason for this -7 spread. So you look at number 18, they're 7-point favorites on the. Are they on? This is in Austin though, right?
In Austin,
So,
yeah.
Austin.
7-point favorites at home, but still, you see the ranking disparity and you kind of scratch your head. It's because Texas is way more respected. Texas came into the season more respected than TCU, but I'm not sold on Quinn Ewers. Look, I know you guys have the running backs to get it done. You have the stable of running backs, but Quinn Ewers to me is the Achilles heel here. I watched that Kansas State game, the majority of it. I came away impressed with the running backs. I mean, but Ewers, to me, the only thing every ball that he throws, it's a touch ball. Like there's no zip on any of his throws. All of his throws look like he's lobbing it there. Like I'm not convinced with what I see with my eyes on Quinn Ewers. So I'm just going TCU. I like Max Duggan. I think he's a good quarterback. He's been playing great. This offense is humming. They have a top prospect in their wide receiver out wide, who's probably on every NFL GM's wish list right now. Go up and get pretty much anything. I like TCU and the points here. I think they're going to win the game. This is a classic letdown spot in my eyes for Texas. Right when you think they're getting back, they remind you that they're not. Yeah. So give me TCU.
I like that, Roland. It's a perfect transition. Is right when you think they're back, they're really not. They beat Oklahoma 49-0, covered the -7.5 spread easy. What did they do the next week? They beat Iowa State, but they beat them by 3 as almost 16-point dogs. And then they go to Oklahoma State. They were favored by 6 there, and they lose 34-41. They go to Kansas State. They were favored by 3, and they won. TCU is just all numbers for me, man. So they're 100% on the road covering the spread. As an underdog pick, they're 1-0. When the spread was, between +5 and +9, they're 1-0, 6-1-1. It's an easy pick for me. I'm not going to overanalyze it because when I do that, sometimes I change my mind. I like the line as soon as it came in. You're getting the whole touchdown here for an undefeated team going up against a team that isn't consistent. To me, this is consistency versus non-consistency. Texas has not been consistent. You just shouted out their quarterback not playing well. It's been a gauntlet in the conference, and I think TCU has handled that a little bit better than what Texas has. So give me TCU. I'm not going to take too much time on it or overanalyze. And, it's like when you're doing fantasy and you're tinkering with your lineup. I'm not going to tinker here. I'm taking TCU, the +7, buying the hook to +7.5. And I'm watching this game on Saturday and having some fun.
Yeah. One thing Roland did mention was he was happy with the running backs from Texas. I just got to highlight Bijan Robinson, 30 carries last game for 200 and I don't know if it was like 205 yards or something like that. It was 209 yards with a touchdown. Ron, if Texas wants to, they can bully ball TCU up front. They can just run the rock. Second half, we saw them slow down with the running. They stopped running it the way they were running it in that first half. If Texas goes and they plays that bully ball, controls the clock, I don't see them stopping Bijan. 30 carries, 209 yards. The kid can run.
Yeah, Bijan's legit. That guy's going to be a pro on Sundays for sure.
Yeah.
And the backup too.
And Roland, when you say that, a lot of touch passing from Quinn Ewers, when you see the kid play, the thing that gets to me is he doesn't set his feet. The guy has arm strength and arm talent, and he feels like he can make every throw. And I just feel like if he took his time, set up the throws, he would connect a lot more. He keeps overthrowing Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy's got to be frustrated because every quarterback he's ever played with at the University of Texas finds a way to overthrow the kid. And the kid is open because that guy is a speedster.
I was going to say, Xavier Worthy, I'm very impressed with him. Like I said, I caught a lot of that Texas game last week, and his skill pops off the screen. He's also going to be a guy playing on Sunday, I believe. So I like Xavier Worthy too.
Yeah.
All right, Ron. So what is our consensus here? I am, as far as Texas and TCU going into the Saturday, I'm taking the points TCU +7. Justin, who you got?
You know what? I'm going to be bold here. I was not bold last week, and I said I'd be happy if I was wrong. Texas ended up getting the win. Let me be bold here and say Texas wins, and I'll take those points as well at 7.
All right, Roland, what do you got here?
I'm going to do a little little half unit special here. Give me half on the +7 and half on the money line for TCU.
All right, Roland is a Horned Frog on Saturday. All right, so this is one of the top 2 games that we have scheduled for Saturday.
No, Roland, no. That's too much. You're doing too much.
So besides this game, we have somebody team that we've talked about all day long, but they have another important game coming up, and this is it. An SEC showdown, Alabama and Ole Miss. Huge spread here for teams that, are ranked pretty close together, and we didn't see this coming into the year. Obviously, Alabama with more losses than Ole Miss. However, minus an 11.5 point favorite here. Who you guys got, boys, and why?
I'll start here. I like Alabama to win. I just don't think Alabama should be 11.5 points favorite over Ole Miss. They have not looked good all year. And now you have an offense who can light it up with Lane Kiffin out there looking to get his first win over his mentor, Nick Saban. He's part of the Saban coaching school, the rehab program for coaches. And last year he was just chomping at the bit for the win. This year he really wants to get it. And I think he comes up a little short. Give me Alabama. They got to get it right. They can't afford to lose another one. It's Nick Saban at the end of the day. You still got to overcome that big name that carries in Alabama and Titletown. But it's not worth 11.5 points right now. So give me Ole Miss plus 11.5.
All right.
Yeah, I got to agree with Justin. I don't know that Bama will lose the game outright, but they're definitely not going to – I don't think they'll cover this 11.5 point spread. We just talked about them losing a game last week as 14-point favorites to LSU. They were 14-point favorites against Texas, only won by 1. This is a team that is just not covering these large numbers. Give me Ole Miss. And Ole Miss, I do see a route for them to win this game. They can run the ball probably better than anybody in the country. That's probably been their bread and butter this year. They got a dual threat quarterback and Dart, their running back. His name's escaping me, but he's a stud. Give me Ole Miss plus 11.5 all day.
I'm not saying that Ole Miss is Tennessee, but their offenses are a lot alike. They like to, pass the ball down the field. Alabama's 1-3 against the spread on the road this year. I understand it, but 11.5 is still a lot. I think what I said earlier about Alabama not having the studs, they're a very undisciplined team. I think they have 78 penalties on the year.
That's so unlike Alabama.
And you could see Alabama 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4, offsides. Ole Miss gets a first down. Ole Miss has a very up-tempo kind of, offense, and that might hurt against an Alabama defense who, as far as their secondary goes, isn't the greatest either. I think Ole Miss has 2 weeks to prepare for this game as well. This is going to be their Super Bowl so far for the year. It's a matchup that's going to be close, so I think the points is a lot. And I know you like coaching news, Justin. If Lane Kiffin beats his former boss, Auburn might just come a-calling. So this is a big game for Lane Kiffin as well. And Ole Miss at home catching the points. I'm going to agree with all my boys here, and I'm going to put some money on Ole Miss by the hook to 12 just because 11.5 is just weird to me.
All right. Well, I think that's it for us today as far as the college football goes. Man, it was good to have Roland on. I know he's been in the comments, but, when you have the here in person here in this on this video chat, it's good to have. Ron, anything else? I know this week you're gonna have an NFL podcast coming up after the show, and MMA Tap Hour coming up on Friday. What else do we got, guys?
Yeah, boys, we have MMA Tap Hour Friday. Obviously, Sunday we're dropping some big news. I think we're going to do after this an NFL look ahead. If we can't get in today, for sure, we're going to bring it to you guys before the week comes up because it starts tomorrow. So, we're going to be trying to drop as much content as we can. Thank you for sharing, for liking, for commenting, and just appreciate all the support, man. We really do. It means a lot.
Yeah. More content coming your guys' way for sure.
Yeah, but that's it for the NCAA We Talking About Sports College Top 10. We'll see how we did, and we'll compare it to we'll see what we said, and we'll compare it to what really happened. So be on the lookout for the recap videos as well. That's it for me. Say peace, boys. We out of here.
Peace.
Peace.